I was already there. Yes, it was.
Oh. So I want you to know, it just took us 20 minutes to get this ready because my camera person, there she is. I don't know. She might be fired, which means some of you might have gotten the answer right, although it was originally wrong, but it's going to be right because I'm switching camera people. All right, so what we're going to do right now.
I think he promised I didn't.
Anyone here? Coop? Coop. Zip it, my cute friend. So what I want to do right now first is go over numbers 7 to 10 on the workbook, page 96. I still have to take pictures of the answer key for you, and I'll attach that to your email tomorrow. But I had a couple people asking me about 7 to 10, so I'm going to do those with you right now. All right, so number 7 on page 96 says between 53 and 64. Oh, find the pair of numbers that matches the description. So the description is numbers between 53 and 64 that have 9 as their greatest common factor. So think of numbers between 63 and 54, 53 and 64 that have 9 as a factor. Well, there's only 2. So we can kind of get the feel for it right away. So 54 would go here. Are you zooming in, camera person? 54 would go here. That's one multiple of 9. So 54 has 9 as a factor. The next number that has 9 as a factor is 63.
Right there.
So those are your only two numbers between 53 and 64 that have 9 as a factor. If you look at those two numbers and you would list all of their factors, 9 is the greatest common factor for both of them. Okay, so that was that one. Number 8 is the same kind of question, but it's the numbers between 12 and 22 that have 7 as their greatest common factor. Well, 12 is over here, 22 is over here, and we want 7 to be the factor. So that's like counting by 7s. If 7's a factor, you should be able to count by 7s to get to the number. So when you look up here, the next number after 12 that has 7 as a factor is 14. And then the next multiple of 7 is 21. So those are your two numbers between 12 and 22 that have 7 as its greatest common factor. Okay? So factor can also be thought of as a number that you can, if you count by this number, if 7 is a factor of 14, that means I can count by 7s to get to 14. 7 times 2 is 14. 2 7s is 14. 3 7s is 21. 7, 14, 21. So I can count by 7s and get to both of these numbers. That means that 7 is a factor of 14 and 21. It also means that 14 and 21 are multiples of 7. Okay, so we need to be able to use those pieces of, or those vocabulary terms to understand some of these questions. All right, so that's that. Number 8. No. Number 9. All right, number 9. There are 12 tour guides at the Math Museum. So again, you know how I do word problems. As soon as I read something, I gotta write it down. So there's 12 tour guides at the Math Museum. And then I move on, and there are 42 visitors who want to go on tour. So 42 visitors who want to go on tour at the Math Museum. The guides and visitors will split into groups. So when they say guides and visitors, I already know I'm going to be adding those numbers together because the guides, the tour guides, and the visitors are all going to split into groups. So if I add those together, I get 50. I don't get 58.
He said, because it's actually fun.
I get 54. So there's 54 people total who want to be on the tour, and they're going to split into groups. Each group will have the same number of guides and the same number of visitors as every other group. What is the greatest number of groups that can be formed? How many guides and how many visitors will be in each group? Okay, so let me actually go backward here. I'm not going to add that together. And I'm going to say, what is the greatest common factor between 12 and 42? So I want to be able to split the tour guides into the same amount of groups as I split the visitors into. So I have to think of a number that goes into both 12 and 42. And I want the biggest number I can think of, the greatest common factor. So if I listed the factors of 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12, and I list the factors of 42, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 12, thinking. I'm going to do 42 divided by 3. Even I have to do division. 14, 2 would be 21, and 1's partner would be 42. So there are my factors of 42, my factors of 12. So now I want to find the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor is 6. So that means I can have 6 groups of tour guides and 6 groups of visitors.
Can you get rid of them?
So if I split the tour guides into 6 groups, I have 2 tour guides in each group. If I split the visitors into 6 groups, I have 7 visitors in each group. So 6 groups. So the answer to the first question, what is the greatest number of groups that can be formed? 6 groups. And
a certain amount of text.
how many guides and visitors will be in each group? 2 tour guides in each group, 7 visitors in each group. Okay? I could have made 2 groups, but that's not the greatest number of groups I could have made. The question specifically says what is the greatest number of groups that can be formed, which means we were looking for the greatest number that could go into 12 and also go into 42. So that is the greatest common factor. Okay? So that was that one. Let's do number 10. A librarian plans a display. Oh, there she is. A librarian plans a display about world wildlife with 24 travel books and 36 wildlife books. So, number 10. 24 travel books and 36 wildlife books. His supervisor asks that each shelf have the same number of travel books and the same number of wildlife books as the other shelves. So the librarian decides to use 8 shelves for the display. Write a critique of his plan and offer 2 alternative plans that meet the supervisor's request. So if I would have 8 shelves, I could split the 24 travel books into 8 shelves, and I would get 3 books on each shelf, which goes along with what the supervisor wanted. But then when I come down to the 36 wildlife books, if I divide that by 8, I get 4 books on each shelf. And then I have, okay, so I had to pause the video because I saw that I have 4 books on each shelf with 4 books left over. And in my mind, I was like, well, just put those 4 books on another shelf. But I don't have another shelf. That's the problem. So here are my 8 shelves. I had to pause it and do this because my mind went blank for a second. So here are my 8 shelves. So I have 36 wildlife books. Here are the 8 shelves, and there's 4 books on each shelf. So 8 shelves, 4 books on each one. But I've got 4 books left over that don't have a home. If I put 1 book here, 1 book here, 1 book here, and 1 book here, now I didn't follow my supervisor's instructions because I have 5 books on these shelves and only 4 on those. And he told me I need the same number of books on every shelf. So that's not going to work. So this kind of threw me through a loop for a second. And it might have thrown you through a loop too. So I'm kind of glad it threw me through one so that I could help you understand it. So 8 shelves will not work. The plan won't work. So now, it says critique his plan. Well, your plan stinks because it's not going to work. 8 shelves won't do it. So I got to think of what number of shelves are going to work for this problem. So I need to look at these 2 numbers, 24 and 36. And I need to think of some common factors, some factors that will work with both of them. See, 8 didn't work with both of them. 8, 16, 24, 8, 16, 24, 32, 40. 36 is not a multiple of 8, so 8 was not a good option. So instead, I need to think of numbers that are factors for both 24 and 36. So immediately when I look at that, I think 6 and I think 4. But if you can't see that, then you've got to make your factors. So I can come through here and say, what are my factors of 24? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, and 24. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Those are my factor pairs for 24. If I do it with 36, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 6 times 6 will give me 36, so I just list that one time. 4 times 9 would give me 36, 3 times 12, 2 times 18, and 1 times 36. So now, after I've listed the factors, I can look and I can see, okay, how many shelves could I set up that will work so that I can have the same number of travel books on each shelf and the same number of wildlife books on each shelf. So I look up here and I find common factors. So 4 is a common factor. 6 is a common factor. Those were the 2 I thought of. You could do 12 shelves. That would be fine. And you could also do 3 shelves. Or you could do 2 shelves. So you could have chosen how many shelves you wanted to create. So if you only had 2 shelves, then you need to have 12 travel books on each shelf and 18 wildlife books on each shelf. So that might have been your answer. If you have 3 shelves set up, then you would have 8 travel books on each shelf and 12 wildlife books. 12, 24, 36. And so on. If I had 4 shelves set up, I would have 6 travel books on each shelf. And 9 wildlife books on each shelf. Camera person, am I zoomed in? That camera person is fired. But don't worry, that camera person is on their phone. It was zoomed in. She says I'm good. I'll check it out later. So I could go on. I could choose 6 shelves. If I chose 6 shelves, there'd be 4 travel books on each shelf and 6 wildlife books on each shelf. If I wanted to do 12 shelves, I could. There'd be 2 travel books on each shelf and 3 wildlife books on each shelf. So there are a couple answers, well, quite a few answers that you could have had for that one. Okay? If you still have questions on numbers 7 to 10, email me. If you have, I'm going to put, here's my answer key, the ones that I did. So I'm going to take pictures of this and put it in Rediker or attach it to an email too. And then you'll be able to check your book and see how you did. And then if you have questions, If you look at them, first of all, if you look at it and you got them wrong, say to yourself, what did I do wrong? And see if you can find your way to the correct answer. That's really good learning. It's a really great way to learn. If you look at the correct answer and you still say, I just don't get it, then email me and I'll email you back with some hints. If enough people email me about the same question, I'll make a video about it, okay? So don't just look at them and correct them and say, oh yeah, I got them all right or I got them all wrong. Fix them, find out what you did wrong and what you can do better next time, okay? All right, so that is workbook pages 6-2. I'm gonna just quick show it to you on the video. Workbook pages 6-2, numbers 7 to 10. That's what we just did right now. And answer key will get attached to an email and to Rediker. And then the next YouTube video will be the distributive property, which is chapter 6-3. Okay? All right, see you guys.